This is the state of Colorado. The state of Colorado is a spontaneous discussion of the issues. Funding for the state of Colorado is provided by the Adolph Coors Foundation, the Monfort Charitable Foundation, and the investment firm of Piper Jaffray and its employees, looking toward the future since 1895. Now, Don Kinney.
Good evening. Hardball. Negotiations for 2 new sports facilities for 3 professional teams are not advancing smoothly. Among issues, a retractable roof for a football stadium, tax breaks for a privately financed arena for basketball and hockey. That building would be named the Pepsi Center. This week, Mayor Wellington Webb made certain he was seen drinking a Coke. Chris Lopez. Denver took offense to a threat that the arena might be built in the suburbs. Henry Dubroff. Months ago, it appeared the Pepsi project was precarious. We have several Colorado stories, including politics about Dick Lamb and House District 1 campaigning. Various angles of the stadium issue were also covered by Kevin Flynn. A couple legislators complained they were misled about the physical condition of Mile High. Guy Kelly, even prevailing wages for construction are in the debate. In a few minutes, Gary Gerhardt will join us. His wildlife notebook includes an effort to turn the clock back at the Rocky Mountain Arsenal. We begin. The leagues are NFL, NHL, and NBA. Here it is ABNTP. That's Avalanche, Broncos, Nuggets, taxpayers. Chris Lopez.
Could you imagine Denver without the Broncos, without the Nuggets, without the Avalanche? As hard as that may seem to believe, the city's probably been as close as it's ever been recently to being without those teams because of the way negotiations are going over the Pepsi Center, and also because of the way the campaign is progressing on a new football stadium for the Broncos. Things got very, very tense 2 weeks ago with the Ascent Entertainment Group, which owns the Nuggets and owns the Avalanche. Got to a point where, and it's really a matter of personalities at the bargaining table. There's some people on the city's end of things who really annoy Ascent. And I think maybe Kevin probably would know who that would be. The city attorney can be very not so diplomatic sometimes at the bargaining table. And at one point, Ascent walked out of a meeting with the city, and it really had to do with personality clashes more than anything else. And it got to a point where Ascent started looking around the suburbs for other sites, and which ended up in the newspapers. But they were back to the bargaining table yesterday. They met for the first time in a couple of weeks, and they're trying to work out the issues.
Henry Dubroff.
I think the personalities are part of it, but this is fundamentally about money. Denver has changed over the last 5 years and has become a much more attractive sports market. That's to its advantage. At the same time, people like the owners of Ascent and Pat Bowlen, the owner of the Broncos, don't have the money to build the new facilities themselves. And in the case of Ascent, you've seen them doing this little dance, running from one rich person to another, trying to get the $20 million they need to finish out this arena. They went to Phil Anschutz, the billionaire, and that cost them some money because they got into potential litigation. It cost them 15 or 20 million. They've gone to the city. Now they're offering to go to Greg Stevenson, one of the wealthier people in town, to do something in Jefferson County. I think the city has the deepest pockets. I hope that the personalities and the money can come together to put together a deal.
Go ahead, Chris Lopez.
There's no question that the city of Denver, I think, has the best opportunity to keep these teams in the metro area, rather as opposed to going out to Jefferson County. Denver has a lot more that it can offer incentive-wise. But something that Ascent is asking for is something that no business has ever gotten in the city of Denver, and that is a rebate on all sales tax generated by their development. And what happens is you pay your money for the T-shirt at the stadium, and you pay a sales tax on top of that T-shirt. And then what Ascent wants is they want all that sales tax revenue, which amounts to millions of dollars every year. They want that sales tax revenue rebated back to them to do with and then they can do whatever they want with that money. That would be a precedent setting that the city would be foolish to do.
Essentially, the taxpayer is going to pay the bill when it's all over.
That's right, and Henry brought up that teams don't have the money to do it themselves, and that's the way it is in the 1990s. That's the way professional sports operates in the 90s. The public builds these stadiums, the fans pay for them. The teams don't put out any money themselves, but they are going to reap all the revenue.
Guy Kelly.
Yeah, there's huge money at stake, and there are plenty of cities, if Denver's not willing to do it, who will bend over for teams like the Nuggets and the Avalanche. Nashville is willing to write a $20 million check and give it to a team that'll show up there, build them a stadium, and not charge them sales tax. And Chris was talking about rebating the sales tax. They not only do they want that on the stadium, but also on whatever else they might build on that property. If they put up, say, a movie complex, all that money would go to them tax-free too. That's unheard of, but that's what they're asking for.
Chris Lopez, then Henry Dubroff.
Well, municipalities see sports teams as an economic development tool. Municipalities all across the country are trying to lure teams to their cities as an economic development tool because of the development that is spurred by having a professional franchise there. So you see a lot of cities in competition with each other. Denver's not just in competition with Jefferson County, Denver's in competition with Nashville and other cities around the country.
Henry.
I think the key here, though, is that if Denver is going to lay out huge incentives, it doesn't want to be in this position 5 years from now with another city offering another big amount of money to lure a team away from an arena that it owns. And we don't want to be left with a country full of vacant arenas. And that's why I think one issue is if the taxpayers are going to put a lot of money on the line, and we can talk about taxpayers earning $20,000 a year versus sports stars earning $20 million a year on another show. But if the taxpayers are going to lay this on the line and really bend over for these teams, they ought to get some assurance from Ascent that 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, maybe even 20 years down the road or 30, that the teams will be here.
Okay, which brings us to the Avalanche could leave after the next season. Their contract is only for 1 more year. The Nuggets could pack up and go and simply pay the rent for McNichols Arena. And if I may, I'm going to bring Kevin Flynn into this conversation about the Broncos and the proposed stadium vote for a year from this November. Golly, this week it was whether or not we ought to have a retractable roof.
Well, it's a little early to be starting the campaign for November '97, which is when the vote is expected to be. But I think that's what we're seeing getting started already. And the way the polls are reading, it's about 2-1 in opposition to a new football stadium. And frankly, that's not very bad for the Broncos to be this far out from the election and only be down 2-1, because you're going to expect that they'll go up. Already we're hearing on there
you go. We may have a faulty microphone here, so Kevin, now you're on 2 of them.
Okay. Already we're hearing that on the retractable roof issue being brought up, we're hearing the is Mile High Stadium really has run down, as people are being led to believe. On Friday, today, we're hearing that there's an opposition group getting started already. Bill and Shirley Schley, who live up in North Denver, are starting a group called CAST, Citizens Against the Stadium Tax. And I think you're going to see a lot of volatility simply because there's so much time left.
And Chris Lopez, I guess this question of whether or not there should be a roof, Pat Bolin is undecided.
Pat Bolin doesn't know what he wants at this point in time. A month or so ago, he was at the City Club and delivered a speech there where he said, retractable roof, out of the question. Television networks love an open-air stadium in Denver. They love the view of the mountains. They love seeing the snow falling on the field, and they would never want to see a retractable roof. He said, could we get the Super Bowl with the retractable roof? Absolutely, but it's not worth it. Well, here he comes a month later. He tells a sports reporter for the Denver Post that, yes, I want to see a retractable roof. Mike Shanahan, his head coach, says, yes, I want to see a retractable roof. Okay, fine. Yesterday on the Sports Fan Radio Network, Pat Bowlen goes on and says he wants to clear the air. He says, I don't want a retractable roof. I don't know what Pat Bowlen wants.
Henry Dubroff.
This raises that age-old question in real estate: how much do you pay for a view? And in Pat Bowlen's view, the view is everything. And I think that an argument could be made that the retractable roof really allows the stadium to be used for a lot more things. Instead of 8 or 12 football games a year, you really could go up to 20 or 30 dates. You could essentially have a second and much bigger convention floor. You look to 2000 or 2004, 2008 for a possible national political convention. And I think that's where the debate is. But the roof costs a lot of money, and
About $50 to $80 million is the newest estimates from engineering firm called NBBJ out of Seattle, Washington, and they are the firm that has been dealing with Pat Bowlen on this issue, and right now it's 50 to 80 million.
And back to Kevin Flynn.
I don't think that we should overlook the possibility also that the retractable roof issue could be entirely a red herring, meant to be something that could be backed off from later, so as to make it look like there are concessions being made, perhaps similar to what's going on with Ascent, wanting the world and maybe settling for North America, South America, and parts of Asia.
As kind of a wrap-up of all these questions of stadiums, gentlemen, will the Nuggets and the Avalanche really move?
The Nuggets and the Avalanche very definitely would move if they don't get the deal they want in Denver. This company needs to have this arena, and this company has the luxury of being able to shop this arena to other communities, and you better believe they would move, but I do believe that the city of Denver will settle with them.
And Kevin Flynn, you take the perspective of the Broncos. Would they pack up?
I think in the near term, Pat Bowlen is not going to threaten to move the team, although there may be some ticklers from some other cities that are interested in the Broncos. But long term, I think it's a certainty that without a new stadium, when the Broncos' lease at Mile High runs out in 2018, if there is no new stadium, depending on who owns the team then, if it's Bowlen or someone else, it's definitely going to have a new arena in another city or one built in Denver.
Dubroff, final bounce of the ball.
Ascent Entertainment has a lawyer named Steve Farber who professes a great love for the city and county of Denver. It's his job to convince Ascent that they really want to be in Denver for the long term. If he gets there, they'll probably cut a deal.
We'll leave stadium issues and go to politics, beginning with former Governor Richard Lamb. He's making a fight for the Reform Party. Kevin Flynn, he wants to debate Perot, and it's silence.
Well, Ross Perot is trying to maintain a low profile, and I guess for a guy like that, it's not too hard. Ross Perot is saying that he is too busy building a party, building this Reform Party, which grew out of his United We Stand group after the '92 race. He's too busy doing that to engage in a debate with Dick Lamb at this time, that the only chance Reform Party members, such as that, that's sort of a cloudy group that's made up, that makes that up, they're only going to see them once together, and it won't even be in a debate format. It'll be at the August 11th convention in Long Beach, where they both get to make their speeches. Dick Lamb's response this week is to reissue the challenge and say there is no better way to build a party than to generate excitement and to generate controversy, and that's what a debate would do, a face-to-face meeting. He said, Mr. Perot, you don't even have to leave your office in Dallas. I'm sure that if you agreed to it, we could get C-SPAN or some other cable network to set up in your office, and I'll sit here in Denver. Or I'll fly down to Dallas and meet with you. Take an hour of your time. Ross Perot studied the issues for so long, I don't know how much boning up he would need, but I'm sure he could handle it.
And Guy Kelly, earlier in the week, the former governor said, the only way I can get visibility is, frankly, use the media.
Yeah, Ross Perot's playing, this is my party and I'll lead it if I want to. And poor Dick Lamb is fighting